GM listeners, welcome to Builder's Journey on the Club Pod. I'm Nicole, your host and co-creator at Seed Club. Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with Global Coin Research founder Joyce Yang. GCR is a research and investment DAO focused on Web3. Joyce and I discussed the early days of GCR, including her experience going through Seed Club's SCO2 cohort, and the learnings on teams and tooling that she has gained over the last year since launching the GCR token and building her project into a fully functional DAO. Good morning. Welcome.
Morning, GM.
GM. It's so good to see you. Thank you for being here, Joyce. We have known each other for about a year, more than a year now. We were both in SCO2 together when you were just starting GCR. I'm so excited to talk to you. Would you be able to start off and just introduce a little bit about who you are and what you do at GCR, Global Coin Research?
For sure. Thank you so much for having me, Nicole, and really delighted to be here. My name is Joyce Yang. I'm the founder of Global Coin Research. Global Coin Research is a research and investment DAO focused on Web3. So what that means is anyone can join this DAO and invest with, just $5,000 of their check, of their capital, right? So we make it very open and accessible for any Web3 enthusiasts and kind of knowledge workers to join. And we welcome everyone to kind of learn about the new innovations and what folks are building in this space. Because this is really where a lot of the excitements are coming from when it comes to innovation and generally, where the technology is heading towards. And for my role specifically in GCR, I kind of feel like I used to do a lot more, I think, visibility and kind of getting our name out there type of role, where we are sharing, GCR's ethos and mission, and always trying to keep an eye out for recruiting and talent. And I think I still focus a lot on that operations end. And now we have a lot of members who are, we're kind of putting and pushing them out to be more out there and representing GCR, so that, it doesn't have to be me and people don't have to associate me, specifically Joyce, as GCR, because now we are so large as a DAO. To give you an example, we are now the largest, I think, by member in terms of investment DAO compared to any investment DAOs out there. So that's been a milestone, I think, that we've been very proud of, because the owners and the participants now are the members who are literally deciding on, for example, when an investment, the members are directly sourcing the investment, they're doing diligence on the investment, and they're all investing together, right? So we have really accomplished a lot in the last kind of year as a DAO, but also as a brand coming along the way since 2017.
Amazing. So, 2017. I'm super curious to learn a little bit about what GCR looked like in 2017, like when you were starting it, and also before that, where did that initial idea come from? Because crypto was in a very different place back then. There was definitely a lot to know and learn and invest for better or for worse in 2017. But what did it look like, and what is that early genesis story?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are some really amazing kind of early. It didn't feel like we were so early then, but I think looking back and how time has flown, it really feels like we were really early. So to give an example, GCR threw an event in Osaka, Japan during an ETH global hackathon. And back then we had Solana, Near, several of the other layer one chains, co-founders all supporting and attending the same event. And they were all there, sponsoring the event. And it was just kind of, now thinking back, that's probably never going to happen because everyone has grown into such a large, top 10 market cap type of project. So just thinking back then when, Ethereum was just taking off and every other layer one was trying to figure out their next use case and trying to figure out their launch date even, right, by that, at that point in time. It really feels like the ecosystem has come very far. And for GCR, how we really started, I previously, to give folks a background, I was a research analyst at Bank of America. So in a very traditional TradFi type of role where we're interfacing with institutional clients, kind of speaking like stockbroker language all day, right? And at that point, when I discovered Web3 and crypto, I really kind of fell down the rabbit hole and started writing on my own of my thoughts of what's going on in crypto. A lot of times covering at angles that you wouldn't otherwise see in crypto. So, for example, I was writing from the lens of what was going on in Asia in crypto because there was so much retail and institutional capital and interest coming from the Asian markets, and many of the Western Hemisphere folks wasn't very much aware of what was going on, and they wanted to see that angle and that market. So that's how I really started GCR, simply as a newsletter and a media platform and a research kind of outlet to provide information on Asia. And I think for any founders out there, if you're interested in building something, I think always starting out with MVP to see whether your voice or the tone that you're kind of coming in with into the industry is very unique. And if you're able to establish yourself very quickly, that will actually allow you to kind of identify whether there's a need for your product. So
tell me a little bit about when you were starting out, what did that initial team look like? Because you've been talking about we, and I think that, whether it's a set of co-founders or early team members that you bring in, they're so important. And, that ultimately, I think, really helps guide the direction of those critical first steps. So can you tell me a little bit about who was in your early team and how you went about bringing them on?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I didn't mean to use we to really to mislead folks, but to be frank, GCR was really a one woman show up until last year. So
Wow.
literally,
Okay.
yeah, literally, I ran all the events. I wrote all our articles. I built our website. We had occasionally some contractors that I gotten help with to build some technical products on the back end. But I had gotten used to use we, especially I think as a DAO, it's really become a
Yeah.
kind of a good friendly language to introduce. And I really like to think about ourselves as a community. Even if it's just as a core team, we now have about 9 folks on who are part-time or full-time, and then also we have a lot of contributors outside of that who are just earning GCR tokens on a kind of task by task basis. But I think when I think about GCR, when we first started out, we had the support of many really awesome folks who I still consider to be like early supporters. So, to example, SV Angels, investor, Kartik Tower, Multicoin, Kyle Samani. Back then Kyle was just starting out as like a small fund, and he was a subscriber to the GCR platform, and he was always giving us feedback on how to improve. And I consider those guys to be definitely one of the early co-supporters and to kind of leading to where we are today. But I think you'd be surprised how much you could do as it's one person. It's actually very fun for someone like me who's very scrappy and likes to learn about different things. So I naturally gravitate towards, not just, I can't just be writing and sit at my desk all day. I have to be going out there talking to people. I have to be there. Like, I love throwing events when it comes to any kind of, global conferences that we're having, right? So I'm always traveling like at least once a month back then to like everywhere in Asia, from the US and Europe. So it's just been a very fun journey. And I think now we are at a different stage of kind of an organization, but it's been awesome as well.
Okay. So first of all, amazing. You are a force, clearly. Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing trajectory of work, and kudos on that. And okay, so knowing that you were sort of just a solo operator for a while and then made this transition, I'm actually really curious to understand how you first thought about that on multiple layers. So I guess first of all, let's talk a little bit about when it was time to start building your DAO. Where did you find those initial core contributors? Were they people, did you bring them in pre-DAO? Did you start to find, form the DAO, and these people just emerged and sort of found you as you were looking? What did those initial hires, quote unquote, look like?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I think by default of having a DAO, you need to have more people. So naturally, I think as we grown and added more team members, we started thinking about ourselves as more of a DAO. So what that actually means to us in GCR is, everyone having accountability and responsibility for a kind of an entire project or initiative, and also kind of having a very collaborative work environment, right, where everyone, like for example, to give you a tangible thing that we do nowadays is that even as a GCR member, you're able to see every task that the core team members are responsible for on a weekly basis. So we're always giving updates on a transparent basis with our DAO members to have them know that here are the things that we're all working on. So I think to go back a little bit to give some more kind of helpful advice for folks who are looking to recruit their early DAO teammates. I think for GCR, it was really about getting a good number of users and readers. For example, we are a research platform. We have readers already. We have an audience. We have folks who are always subscribing and opening our newsletters. So we're often talking to these folks and telling them, here's an update on GCR. Here's how you can get involved if you'd like to. And I think getting the initial momentum up is also always the hardest, right? It's like people are just always like sitting by the sidelines, never actually want to get involved. But when you can really find someone who really, really feels passionate and resonate with you. So to give you an example, Dan Kim from our team, he was able to bring in probably 2 or 3 members additionally after discovering GCR. And, he really found GCR's mission to be resonating with him, and it really resonated with his friends when he pitched it to his friends, and that's how GCR grew naturally. So I think we're very grateful for that, because I think finding the right first person is really, really important, because it really could break or kind of make your DAO, and that also shapes the culture of the DAO afterwards, right? Because then you have folks who are maybe very similar to the first person who joined. And that can kind of shift the DAO in one way or another. So to give an example, a lot of our folks are coming from traditional finance or very new to Web3, to be honest. So oftentimes there is a healthy pull and tension between the folks who are very Web3 native and the folks who are coming from a traditional non-crypto background. But I think that's where it's really, really great to kind of have this balance of experience to push forward the DAO and what our mission is, which, for us, oftentimes it is very financy in the sense of like thinking about investing. But at the same time, we also are thinking about how we structure ourselves as a DAO, which is very Web3.
And so you spoke a little bit about the culture, and I'm curious, I guess to take a step back, GCR, obviously there's the investment side, but you also do writing and research and analysis. There's a lot of thought and like content creation that goes into your work. And, I had a really interesting conversation with Sherry, who at Water and Music, who I think obviously looked to GCR as a model sort of in the research and writing. And so we talked a little bit about style guide and voice and some of those elements. And I'm curious, how you, especially when you were starting out and you were bringing on more content creators and contributors, how you thought about, voice and style and adherence to sort of the global coin research brand or, approach to writing and content. what did that look like, and how has it shaped or like evolved over the last year, especially as you've been becoming more of a DAO?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think even though I talk about our investing side a lot, I think the research part is really what kind of sets the fundamentals or provides the support for the tone of entirely of how GCR DAO approaches projects and how we think about things, which is that we put more rigor and thoughtfulness into everything that we do, which is why we care about the research part so much. And prior to really onboarding a lot of the contributors into the writing funnel, I was writing most of the articles myself, and I know Sherry was also doing that for Water Music, or I think still is doing that for Water Music. For me, I spent a decent amount of time writing in my previous finance jobs, but also I was a contributor to TechCrunch, and I've had an interface with editors at TechCrunch, and that really helped me understand, the type of quality of articles you're looking for, and that sets also the kind of standard for what you want to see from your articles and everyone else's. So from the tone side, I think oftentimes we're very open with the tone, because I think the beauty of Web3 is about kind of the diversity, and we want to continue to support that as long as they're very good quality. And you can immediately tell when some projects and the writing is very high quality, very thoughtful, versus ones that are very, more kind of marketing focused and specific towards just getting the retail folks to get onboarded, right? So for us, I think oftentimes we give a lot of, to give an example, now we have a lot of contributors sharing and contributing their articles, and they're earning GCR tokens in return. But oftentimes, I think out of the 90% of the articles we're rejecting because the tone is somewhat too markety or too promotional in a way that actually doesn't educate. It doesn't provide any insights that actually is very valuable for the reader. So for us, when the writing really sets a bar for how we as a community thinks about projects overall. So when you read the articles on globalcoinresearch.com, that's the type of analysis that you should expect when you actually join our DAO. So you can see when we actually have these investments that we are doing diligence for and making kind of investment decisions on. There are very in-depth notes that every kind of contributor that contributors are writing in our thread, right? They're in-depth kind of thoughts around the market, about the comparable analysis or the valuation that the members are contributing. So this is the expectation that we set. So I think that really sets the right tone for the overall kind of DAO itself.
That's fascinating. Okay, so
we're very nerdy, to say.
I love that. I mean, I've experienced a little bit of that. I've seen a little bit of it, in some of your comments on investments. And you come with your homework. Like, it's always so impressive, the perspective that you're able to give. And now I have a better understanding of where that's coming from, based on the work that goes on behind the scenes. So one of the big, I think, challenges that a lot of DAOs are grappling with right now is this contributor onboarding, bounties, how to have, part-time or even less than part-time contributors, and how to bring people in meaningfully, have them contribute in a way that it's a value add on both sides, and to do that at scale. And it sounds like you all have both found a way that works for you, but then obviously also there's some standards, so that you're filtering out contributions that don't make sense or aren't a great fit. And I would love to have you take me through a little bit of like tactically, how do you all do this? Because again, this is the big thorny issue that most DAOs are struggling with these days.
Yeah. This is a very fun and exciting kind of initiative that a lot of our kind of core team looks forward to. So to give folks an example, a walkthrough of how we actually go about recruiting. Currently, we have a Google sign-up sheet that allows you to fill out it's a very in-depth, detailed form of like how did you define GCR? What do you think about GCR? How do we improve GCR? What are the ways that you want to contribute GCR? And then we compile all these results and we kind of share them with the entire kind of core team on a weekly basis. So, to give an example, on a weekly basis, we have 10 contribution submissions, right? And those are kind of folks who are summarized in the sense of getting the results of our answers. And it feels like Christmas when that day comes, honestly, because it's just like so many awesome people who are interested in GCR, and we're just like, oh my god, we could definitely make more use of like these like awesome human capital, and for GCR specifically, I would say it really depends on the DAO as well and how you think about your talent and how that relates to your DAO. So to give an example for GCR, we like talent is everything. Like I really care about that. That's what I spent like 50% of my time on, which is like making sure everyone is happy with their job or with their role, and they're spending at least 80% of their time in their role on things that they care about and that they're very happy with. Like that I really care about. So like whenever I emphasize like to anyone who's joining GCR, I tell them, if you're not doing anything that you care about, then don't join GCR. Or if there's no role for you that you don't care about, then don't join GCR. And if you do join GCR, we're gonna find you something that's gonna fit exactly what you want to do and what you enjoy, because that matters to me a lot, and I try to do that and optimize for myself as well for that particular type of focus and goal, right? So after we have a list of kind of contributor submissions, the core team kind of tackles and pair up with those individuals who are interested or submitters, and we start kind of engaging them in the process of a trial period. So a 2-week trial period of getting them onboarded and getting them kind of to familiarize themselves with how GCR kind of works internally. And that period is where we kind of assess the skill set of that individual, and that individual assess their fit and their desire to whether to want to proceed with GCR after that 2 weeks. So it's worked out so far quite well. We have, I think probably onboarded half the team this way. And, of course, sometimes there's oftentimes that there the time commitment doesn't work out, or the initiative that the person is working on isn't something that they wanted to. So then we have them continue to stay in GCR and occasionally kind of have them help us out with more ad hoc tasks. But other than that, what we found so far is that the folks who are really interested in GCR really knows what GCR is, and they know what they're signing up for. And then therefore, usually we start them off with a part-time or kind of a 10 to 20 hour role. And then gradually we try to transition them into a full-time. So that's how it worked so far. It's, I think as we've grown and become like a 20-person team, it probably needs a bit more process when it comes to, the recruiting and the filtering. But so far, I think this kind of pairing with someone who's already existing in core team and having the new new members see how the sausage is made, it's been working out pretty okay.
So let's talk a little bit about the tech tools, because I think that what you just described makes a ton of sense. I love how gradual it is and how there's sort of this nice mutual time to try each other on and to start to get into the community. And I think it's also the care and the emphasis that you put around people feeling good about their role and this being something that you care about is so critical. So let's talk tech tools, because I'm really curious. You mentioned a Google form. What are some of the other tech tools that you've been working on? You also mentioned that there's transparency into your team's tasks so that DAO members can see what the core team is working on. So what are some of the tools, sort of good, bad, ugly, that you use, and how are you putting those together?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we can start with the ugly, and it's probably not so ugly, but I think just this morning I had struggled with with Gnosis, right? Always prompting for you to like up your gas limits. I'm sure like half of DAO people have experienced that if you have interface with Gnosis, and it's like a pain in the butt. And um, and to be frank, I think the DAO tools in the space, and as a GCR, GCR is a research and investment DAO, so we actually invest and also see a lot of DAO
Yeah.
tools that come our way.
Yeah,
Oftentimes,
you have a
we
very unique insight.
I like to think so, but I think at some point now our members are getting a little bit tired of DAO tooling. They're like, there's just so many DAO tools out there. So like, how do we decide on which one actually will do well? And I'm
Did
like,
you
oh,
see
that's a very
Jess's
good point.
tweet?
And I think,
He
no, I
just
didn't. What did he say?
he had tweeted more. We need more DAOs and less DAO tools. So I feel like your members would appreciate that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. I think in a unique position that GCR is in now, we are able to really help support a DAO tool when we actually invest in them, share our feedback with them, and also bring them to other DAOs that we partner with, right? So I think there's a lot of strategic value now with GCR working with DAO tools directly. But I think to name some that I love, and these are just we cannot live without. Like really, I highly recommend them to everyone, which is Parcel.money. Parcel is a multi-send distribution application, right? So it's literally a simple simple tool where it allows you to send your funds, or in terms of salaries or in terms of expenses, to multiple people at the same time. Right. And it's just as literally as simple as it sounds, and it just works. And that actually is what really matters, because I think on one spectrum, we see a lot of DAO tools that are trying to build, one thing really, really well. And on the other spectrum, we see a lot of DAO tools that are trying to build a platform, a suite of products for the DAOs. And oftentimes, the suite of products usually doesn't hit the standard for any of their features. So, and that's the problem, because then like, how do you get any project to use you and stick with you, right? Even though, the end goal of building the suite in the first place was to build more stickiness and retention. So for us so far, we found DAO tools that have really focused and like gone above and beyond on one single type of feature, has done very, very well when it comes to a use case. Whether these projects will actually end up monetizing well, or becoming sticky in the sense of and being able to stay as the DAO grows. That's where the question comes in from an investment perspective, right? So just to go back, and I think when you kind of mention these kind of concerns to DAO tools, many founders I think are very receptive, right? And they want to continue to keep building with you, keep hearing and learning about your feedback, and then kind of adding more features that make sense. So I think Parcel.money as a team does that, for example, and they also solve a very immediate painful point for us as a DAO to manage expenses or salaries. And then on top of that, we use Utopia. Utopia is utopia.app. I think that's their website. They are essentially a Gusto for DAOs. And the team's just so hungry. They're always asking us for feedback, always asking for kind of ways to improve. And I think they just iterate and build so quickly. And those are the type of teams that we like to back, because, as folks who have been in the DAO space seeing, DAOs are just come in all colors and variations. It's just impossible to just kind of build for one DAO, but you also need to make sure to understand and capture the fast trends that are happening and catching on between DAOs. So I think having a team that is able to be so receptive to the changes in the trends of how DAOs are evolving is very, very important. I think lastly, a new tool that we started using is called 0x Splits. So 0x Splits.xyz is a tool that allows you to do multi-send. Multi-send is a big, I think for any DAO, if you're thinking about really distributing value and distributing decentralization, like you need multi-sending tools, right? Because like the whole point is to transfer the value back to the multiple members, right? And for us, when we're doing investments, to give an example, we have 10 people making an investment. And then when the project launches, we have to distribute back the tokens back to these 10 people, right? So what we're using now, 0x splits, is their product where they allow you to multi-send to everyone. But the special part about them is that they're able to do this very cheaply with very little cost and gas. And this is where like their magic is in terms of how they have built the product. Is that, for example, usually when you send to 10 people in a distribution of kind of investments, for example, it costs probably $60 to $80, if not north of that. These guys are able to do it below $30. So that's just like makes a huge difference when it comes to operations. So for us, it's whether you could save us cost in operation cost or make us more lenient and or efficient in our operational speed. So that those are the apps that I found to be particularly more useful. So I ramble a lot about apps, but I have a lot of thoughts about apps.
So you have a lot of exposure and you have a lot of experience. So I think it makes a ton of sense. And I know this is going to be something that people are interested in. What do you use to provide that insight into teamwork and tasks? Is it, is sort of a more traditional project management tool, or where can contributors, you mentioned that members can see what the core team is working on. How do you all do that?
We have a Discord channel where members are just sharing. It's like on a weekly basis. There's a new thread of, March 7th work update, and everyone just shares in that thread. I think there are a lot of new tools that we can experiment. I think what I encourage DAO tools to start thinking about integration with existing DAO tools now, because honestly, DAOs do not have the bandwidth to test all of you out. So the best way for you to get adoption is to actually get integrated with existing well-loved products, and that's really going to be make your life easier when it comes to customer acquisition.
So true. It's such an interesting space, and I think that there's this balance between wanting to do, like you said, one size fits all, at which case you get 100% just the lowest common denominator, and then nobody's happy. Like everybody's using it, but nobody's happy, and I feel like that's obviously our Web 2 experiences. Or you get, your desktop has 100 apps open and they all interconnect, but you still have 100 apps open.
Yeah, exactly.
So there we are. Okay, so we haven't talked about your token yet, but you mentioned before we started that you just celebrated a year out with the token. I remember being in SCO2 with you, and the token had just launched, and I was working with the Ampled team, learning and supporting there, and that, to be honest, just seemed so foreign, because I think that a lot of us were in a much earlier stage, and so we weren't at the same place as you were. You were ready to launch quite early on in that cohort, and so it's wild that a year has passed. I would love to hear what this year has been like with the token out in the market, and what those early first steps looked like.
Yeah, for sure. The token is a very sensitive and interesting topic, because it's like we actually don't look at it that much, but at the same time, to give an example, our members or our core team gets paid 50% in tokens and 50% in USDC. So you really have to care about like the well-being of your employees and the contributors. So that's where I think it really mattered for us. So to recap kind of how far and what we have accomplished in the last year, I think just on a membership side, we have increased our Discord from kind of no Discord to now 3,000 members, with over half that's actually, members who are holding GCR tokens. So that's a really big milestone for us, because those are the members who are interested in learning about, the Web3 projects, looking to make an investment in the Web3 projects. And once they actually stay with us and make an investment, they have a very long retention span with GCR. If you can imagine, any investment that you make in the traditional Web2 world, it's kind of going to be like at least 2-3 years for it to kind of see any results or any liquidation. But for tokens, often at times it's faster, but still going to be about minimally a year or two. So we now, have these kind of members who are sticking with us, who are giving us feedback on how to improve ourselves. And that's really the best type of kind of growth track record I could really be proud of and pride ourselves in with kind of the team that we have built. Because retention matters to us a lot more, I think, than as a metric than I think what I've seen from other DAOs. But I think that's a new challenge for, if you're building DAO tooling, I think retention is a big focus. Just think about that if you have nowhere else to build when it comes to DAO tooling. But for the GCR token itself, we launched our token March last year, and now it's been exactly 1 year, which has been a really wild ride. Honestly, I think for anyone who's trying to launch a token, you really don't know what's going to happen, to be honest. You just put it out there and wait for it to be discovered, wait for the right type of members to come in. And gradually, somehow, I think when you look at GCR, one member was saying, I'm waiting for GCR to drop between $3 so I could buy some again. But it looks like GCR is the most, it's like the stable coin in this bear market right now because it's not moving that much. Which goes back to my point about retention, because our members, once they actually become members, they are very sticky. So our token, as a result, because no one is selling them, becomes very stable. And that actually matters a lot to us because as a membership token, you want kind of predictability in the price of the membership so that new members come in and they could tell their friends to come in and without having to see much fluctuation in the price, right? We don't want it to be where a price of a membership goes from $5,000 to $10,000 because the token double in price. That's not what we're looking for. We definitely want a stable, kind of very stable rise in the token price so that it accommodates the new members from coming in and also benefits or it's valuable for the team members who are getting paid and for the writers who are getting paid in GCR tokens for kind of recognizing their work and the value going up over time. So I guess, in terms of I don't look at this very much, but our market cap, I suppose, if you look at the kind of CoinGecko stats, we've gone from 7 million in market cap to now around 45 million market cap. I think oftentimes the valuation in the liquid markets doesn't really say much, but it does for us when it comes to what we see as accomplishment. It's really a steady rise in token price and a kind of steady rise in the members coming in and joining GCR.
Yeah, I appreciate how you've translated it back into basically, showing this connection between ultimately this is what the price means. And it is ultimately, back about the humans where it's okay, these people are staying, which means that, yes, the token's not in the market. And also there's a consistency and a loyalty within the membership. And so, the token is obviously, it's a token. It's a symbol of that more than anything. I'm curious, there's been this interesting shift, especially as NFT utility expands and there's a shift away from sort of just seeing this one narrow use case with NFTs. There's been a lot of exploration into NFT DAO membership. And obviously, this wasn't even on our radar a year ago. I think that it was just something that wasn't really being done. And it was, we were very much on the sort of social token focus. I'm curious what your take is now with DAO membership using either ERC20s versus NFTs, and whether you've even thought about bringing NFTs into GCR in any kind of way.
Yeah, we are actually working on an NFT initiative right now as we're speaking. So we do care about it, especially as I think, NFTs are really, really great visible representation of your membership. And I think we want to continue to accentuate and extend how our members feel about their membership, which is to, be proud and to show it to their peers or friends. And I think when it comes to NFT membership, this has been recommended by our members as well, because, occasionally we are, when we kind of see the asymmetric asymmetry between what the DAO adds in value versus what the token price is, we change the price of the token sometimes, or the membership. We change the price of the membership sometimes, and that is where I think our members sometimes would say that, oh, I wish I had an NFT, because then I don't have to deal with continuously buying more membership tokens, right? Because if I just hold an NFT, that's going to be on my one access pass, and the NFT in itself inherently could just go up in value in the secondary market if there is recognition or the greater demand than supply, right? So I think we are definitely exploring how NFTs could potentially interact with our token and the membership itself. I think we've seen several really kind of beautiful NFTs that's been used for membership, and I think there will be probably both when it comes to how projects and DAOs are thinking about memberships. It's really going to be how you have, like, if you have a entire economic model thought around NFTs, then that can really work. I don't know. I've seen like a very extensive model for NFT so far, but with the token, so I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff that you can do. To give an example, because it's fungible. So to give an example, when we're now we have community members who are doing sourcing investments, right? So members now from the outside are bringing in potential projects that for the community to invest in. And we're paying these members in GCR tokens. So, and maybe to give folks and listeners a background on the GCR token treasury, right now we are charging carry for these investments that the community does, right? We're charging a small percentage carry, which partially goes back to the treasury. So the treasury becomes more robust from the investments that we make in the form of carry. And and the GCR token is a proxy to a governance and governing the treasury, right? So by giving the GCR token to the sourcing team, we're essentially allowing them to earn the upside in the project that we end up investing in, if that makes sense. I know it's like a lot of pieces, but
no, it's very interesting, and I think, yeah, as you mentioned, there's, pros and cons of each model. And I'm not surprised to hear that you're exploring some type of complementary NFT structure. And I think that, those conversations around how much is a membership worth in this ecosystem, in this economy, makes a ton of sense. But then, like you said, there's this challenging trade-off where then you have to notice or sort of reckon with, okay, so now does that mean that everybody has to get more tokens or has to retain more tokens? And so it's this difficult push-pull. You mentioned governance really briefly, and I'm curious what that looks like on the GCR side. Would you say that you are sort of a proposal heavy DAO? Does a lot of work happen on the ground, sort of below the layer of proposals and governance? How does your community decide what needs to go to a vote, for example? And what are the other governance strategies that you use?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that we think about constantly and are trying to get and learn more from existing DAOs that are larger than us or are more decentralized than us or well organized than us. So right now, most of our proposals are related to anything that has to do with the treasury. So if we're trying to do a treasury diversification, we put it up for proposal. If we are trying to increase, for example, the carry that we charge, that partially goes back to the Treasury, where that's also a proposal. So that's to say that we're trying to do more proposals, and we're trying to really introduce this process to allow and train our members to have more ownership and speaking up more than what they already are doing. For the current governance process, we actually have essentially a soft proposal that we align on as a community in Discord, and then we transfer the soft proposal to Snapshot. And we're actually working with this other project, DAO Tooling. They're quite new. They're called Mural.xyz, but I think they're going to be essentially a more customizable snapshot and more easy to use snapshot, and that's something that we're looking forward to really make a lot of these processes a bit faster and more streamlined. And so to give an example, Mural allows you to embed the snapshot into Discord so that you can kind of see the entire like design and the scope of it in the Discord, so that you don't have to like navigate, go to Snapshot to see the entire thing and vote there. So just simple kind of experiences like that makes sense for us, I think, to train our members into understanding or getting more involved into governance. But it's definitely something that we're really actively thinking about more of.
Yeah. And so how do you do investment decisions? Is that through Discord soft consensus and then just through some polling there?
Yeah, so to give folks an insight on our investment decisions and just our investments in general, we have done about, we have probably vetted over 200 projects at this point. We meet about, 3 to 5 projects on any given week. So, they're just like 1 hour calls with every founder. So it really is a lot.
Yeah.
And then we have invested so far about, I would say, 40 projects as a community. Generally, we have done a lot of these, all these investments we've done internally because we're moving so fast with them. And so it's like after we have a call with the founder on Monday, we go back to the team to share our the community interest, how much the community wants in terms of allocation by Wednesday or Friday, right? So it's the team is the members are moving very quickly when it comes to expressing interest for these investments. So when it comes to Snapshot, it felt like it didn't make sense because we also want to divide the type of you don't want just inundate Snapshot with all these investment kind of polling, right? It's so we have formed an internal process for that separately. But I think there will be more investment kind of decisions that are being made on Snapshot and being voted on. So that's something that we're working on as well.
I think it's important to note and for people to understand that not everything in a DAO goes to Snapshot and that there's other ways of functioning as well, which, I mean, of course, but also, there's this sort of, I think, perspective of a DAO that everything is put through like some kind of tech filter or method. And that's not always true.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. So I think training your members to, or I keep using the word training, but I really meant just fostering a place where your members can speak up to share dissent or share disagreements. That's the kind of the culture that we want to foster first. And then the act of actually simply voting for a decision is something that, we imagine a lot of tools can make that a lot more easier of a process than what we see now, because there's just so much friction. And by the point you get to the actual point of Snapshot, all decisions have been made, and it's really just like a kind of, you're doing it for the show in some ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the what we try to strive for initially, I think, it's just that if you want a really solid community, you should foster this place where people are able to just share disagreements, share their opinions, and if that's a place where you are, then I think having a Snapshot is just a kind of cherry on the top.
On the governance Sunday. Well. Thank you so much. This has been such an informative conversation for me, and I'm sure for many others. Before we sign off, I would love for you to just share where we can find you and follow you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Nicole. I'm super excited to be back and speaking with C Club members and just like alums and everyone else. Um, Folks can find me on Twitter at Joyce in NYC. So I'm in New York City, and so Joyce in NYC. You can always find me here. Feel free to ping me, DM me. I open my DMs all the time. And for GCR, definitely check out globalcoinresearch.com, or gcr.community is where our Discord is. So feel free to join in. Anyone can join with 100 GCR tokens. So all you have to do is hold 100 GCR tokens. And if you don't like what you see, you can feel free to sell them on the open market. And we love to have you just to kind of come and peek in and say hi and see if this community is for you.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicole.